Welcome to the selfgrowth.com show. My name is David Riklan, and I'm the founder of selfgrowth.com. Today, we'll be discussing procrastination, specifically how to procrastinate your way to success. You'll want to listen in today. To help us understand this topic, I'm excited to interview Dr. Tom Preston. Make sure you have something to write with. We're going to be sharing a lot of useful, practical information today. Before we start, I want to take a couple of minutes and share some information about Dr. Tom. Dr. Tom considers himself very fortunate to be a success both personally and professionally. As a highly sought after trainer, advisor, consultant, and coach to healthcare professionals and entrepreneurs worldwide, his services are in high demand. As a deeply devoted family man, his success revolves around his 30-plus year marriage to his high school sweetheart, I love that, and the love of his life, Shelley, and the 5 amazing daughters they're raising. Throughout his long coaching career, Tom has been helping his clients design and manifest the business and life of their dreams. He assists them in connecting to their most authentic version of self and then leverages the power, wisdom, and creativity of that connection to help them be more so they can do more and ultimately have more. Whether he's leading a team building session, facilitating a corporate retreat, or doing one-on-one coaching, his warm, engaging style penetrates through to the heart of the matter, allowing for maximum manifestation in minimal time. Dr. Tom, welcome to our show.
Thank you, David. It's an honor to be here.
All right, very excited about this. I love the concept. So we're going to jump right in. So the concept we're talking about is procrastinate your way to success. You know, a lot of people have in their mind, procrastination is a bad thing. So how do you procrastinate your way to success?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a counterintuitive thought process here, David. But in day-to-day life, whether you're talking personally or professionally, there's just so many things that we could do, right? And
Sure.
So again, commonly procrastination, as you stated, given a bad rap. But my offering is that actually procrastination is a gift. It's a necessity. And I think this has actually ramped up, David, over the last 20, 30 years with the internet and social media. I mean, there's just so much information and so many things to do. How do you even begin to filter through all of that data, all of that information, all of those priorities, all of those strategies, all of those goals to get what's really important? Well, you need to procrastinate on the stuff that is not in your lane, if you will. And we'll talk a bit more about that as we go farther through this conversation. But to the degree that you get crystal clear, using, again, my language, who you are, who you're not, who you authentically are. And once you have that, and that's attainable, it's an attainable thing, David, right? A lot of people think that's a little bit airy foo-foo, you got to go meditate in India for 10 years
Right.
with a yogi to figure that stuff out. It's not true. You can get that clarity, and from that clarity, you have the courage then, hopefully, to procrastinate in all the stuff that is not authentically yours, that's not in your lane.
I love that concept and that approach to looking at things. And personally, what I see all the time with a lot of folks is that one of the reasons they procrastinate is the shiny new toys all coming at you all over the place. Every 15 minutes is a shiny new toy. You're interested in that. And by getting laser focused, as you're saying, on what's really important, kind of this, you talked about this concept of the authentic self, you can really connect with the things that are important. So what do you really mean when you say connect with this most authentic kind of version of yourself? Because that's a big word, authentic version. That conceptually a big thing. So I want to get my hands around. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So from my perspective, David, right, it's I contend that all living things on the planet have a meaning, have a purpose, And when I looked up purpose years ago, because I was, 30 years ago, I was working through like why, what's why mean, what's my why, and and then of course the construct of purpose came up, and purpose, very simply defined as the reason something exists or is done, right? So again, I contend that all living things have a purpose, and from that purpose, from that why, which I then call your most authentic part of self, right? Then from that, if you focus on that and do that, as we said, laser beam wise, then things happen. And let's give examples, just, really simplistically, David, from the animal kingdom even, right? I mean, you take a moth and you turn a light on, there's only one direction that moth's going, it's going to the light, right?
Yeah.
You get salmon or trout in the spring, there's only one place they're going. They're authentically programmed to go and do something, to go up the stream and spawn. You take a goose, every fall we got this beautiful migration, they're headed south, right? It's something that's innate, it's something within them. And I contend that same construct is true for human beings. There's something inside of us that wants to express itself in a certain unique and authentic way. The key is, can you get the clarity? Can you stop the noise and focus in enough to figure out what that is, what your, goose going south drive is, and then focus. And then this is the other part, David, which I don't want to miss out on. And then have that courage to say no to all those shiny things, swirl, that happens every day. And then focus and stay in your lane, because there are people, and I work diligently, David, to only have people on my team and in my life that are truly inspired, that are truly working from their authentic self. I have a plumber, David, his name's Mark. Right. He is the most authentic plumber you'd ever, he can tell you more about American Standard toilet in 5 minutes than you would ever want to know. And then that's the guy I want on my team, because he does that plumbing with that little something extra, And, one of my mantras when I'm consulting with people and teams and businesses, David, is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? That is such a good mantra because, here's an example. Mark, my plumber, he was just here in the last month to change a wax seal on a toilet, right?
Okay.
Definitely not my lane. Could I do it? Sure I could, but not my lane, not what I think my authentic, purpose is. And Mark's here. He charged me $176 to change that stupid wax seal. Took him 10 minutes. You know what? I'm happy to write that check because he's doing what he's authentically designed to do, and it frees me up to do what I'm designed to do. Right? That's really a part of that whole magic in the thinking, and for me, David, it took a long time to reformat that thinking.
I get that, and I see that a lot in my life because there's a lot of times where you're tempted to do things that aren't a good use of your time. But sometimes you just want to do it. You want to try it, or I've never done it before. But it sounds like the real big win is figuring out what it is that you're really good at, that you really want to do. And I kind of like the concept, this authentic self, because these are things that either you're really good at or you must develop skills at. If you're not good now, but it's your authentic self, your mission should be, I would imagine, does it make sense? Your mission is to develop the skills necessary to be your authentic self.
Yes, and here's the thing, David, it's that the important distinction for the viewers is it's not like it's always going to be easy, okay? Right. But there's this push within you, this or pull, to express. So you've got like usually some of the monikers that we use to really help people dial in is you're unusually interested in the topic. Okay. And there's a certain amount of passion and excitement about that. And there's this never ending desire to keep learning about it and to just, the Japanese concept of kaizen, right? Where you just never ending improvement. Those are some of the many, benchmarks that we use in my company to really help people dial into what it is that's most authentic for them.
All right. One of the things I know you talk about are core values. So I want to spend some time talking about core values. So what do you mean? What are core values and where do they come from? Where do you get that?
Yeah, exactly. So core values are a way that we operationalize, David, and help people, again, get down to what it is that's most authentic for them. Okay. So your core values really are an indicator of what it is that's most important to you, or, to use the word again, what you value most in your life. Okay. So where do they come from? My mentor on this had a teaching that I think still resonates deeply. It was over 30 years ago. He said, your values come from your voids. Okay.
From your voice.
From your voids.
Oh, your voids. Your voids. Okay.
Your voids. Okay. So what are voids and where do voids come from? And this goes back to a kind of a metaphysical, philosophical construct, David, right? So we'll just try this on, like the sweater grandma gives you for Christmas. Okay. You don't like it, they can take it off, but let's just try it on.
Okay.
That construct is this, David, right? That there is a matrix of intelligence in the universe that helps keep the planets in orbit and helps allow this amazing thing to keep working and so on. And there's a piece of that within, each one of us. Okay. So we come from this place of wholeness or completeness or essence that is just like something that I try to understand, but because it's so infinite, I can't quite wrap my head around. But whatever this matrix of intelligence is that I see when I look at the laws of the universe, man, I know there's something there. Okay. So then if we come from that, if we're kind of, birthed, if you will, David, in that image or in that essence, then we come from this place of wholeness or completeness. So a void is when we either look up towards something or somebody and we don't see how we are that, or we look down towards something or someone and judge it as something less than us. Right. Whereas really, David, again, from that philosophical construct, we're all of that. Right? So that's where the voids come from. And again, on the philosophical sort of, tangent here, right? It's an opportunity for us to learn, grow, evolve, experience, express, which in my opinion, David, is really why we're down here wearing these earth suits anyways, right? We're here to just have these experiences and explore and grow and evolve and learn and stuff. So the voids create the things that we value that will then drive us. And David, I offer this, and this is a pretty bold statement. So again, we'll just try this on for size. All human behavior, all human choices, all things that we feel are important, we strategize and goal set about, are ultimately tied back to the things that we value. Okay? So that's the place that we can understand and sort of the birthplace of these voids, which create the values, which allow us to grow and learn and evolve and experience and express ourselves, which to me is kind of what we're here to do.
All right. For me, what I'm hearing in terms of this void is areas where you feel there's a lack of completeness.
Yes.
It's not complete. There's something missing.
Yes.
Whatever it is, you have a feeling sometimes where, life might be okay and, you have your job and your relationships, but there's just something, you feel there's something missing that
Yes.
you feel. And I guess identifying what that is and what that, as you're describing a void, what are some examples of core values? And then two things. What are some examples? And then how do you go about determining your own core values?
Yeah, great question, David, right? So I can tell you my core values because obviously I know myself better than I know you, right? So, and an important piece, maybe we'll talk about this a bit later, David, but like core values can shift over time, okay? So again, right now I have 3 values, David, okay? And I would offer this. There are the most powerful appreciation or understanding or awareness of values. Less is actually more. Right. So I have had people tell me about values exercise they did, where they looked at this big, like sort of spreadsheet of characteristics and they checked them off and they got like, well, there's 27 things I value. I would offer if they took the time, David, to go deeper, they would boil it down to 3 to 5 things that they truly, truly value. It might show up in different forms, David, at different times, but there's truly, yeah. So my 3 values, David, right now, my first value is exploring human potential. That fires me up, man. Again, you take me to a cocktail party, I'm either the most excited guy in the room or the most boring SOB because you can't get me to stop talking about that if you get me on that. My second value, David, is family. And again, family has been my number 1 value for almost 30 years. And so again, just as I talked about behavior, David, right? Look at my behavior. We talked about this. I got 5 kids.
Sure.
Right? Why would any sane person have, gestate and birth 5 children with their partner if they didn't value family?
Right.
So, and my third value right now, David, is called financial legacy. And it's an opportunity to really create a legacy of service, which is translated into finances so that my grandchildren's grandchildren have opportunities, David, that, again, quite frankly, I didn't have growing up, right? So those are my values. And again, they're birthed from voids earlier in my life that are allowing me to, go and focus and explore and do things.
So how do our listeners, how do we determine our core values? Is there a process? What do we do?
Yeah, exactly. There's a process, and there's a process we have, David, that's taken from one of my mentors that is 13 really key questions. And really it's to summarize without, again, boring the listeners with too many details. But if you just look at what your life demonstrates, like in other words, David, if we had a good 20, 30-minute chat and you gave me like some good insights, not the fluffy crap that you think I'm supposed to hear, but the real insights into what your life has currently demonstrated, I could probably tell you pretty closely or hopefully very accurately what your values are. So again, I don't want to oversimplify it, David, but if the viewers were just willing to look at what their life is currently demonstrated, they would see what they value. What I find, David, when I take clients through this is so many times they get into well, I should value this, or I ought to value this, and you can fill in the blank, David, right? Like a good, a good American boy should value, this. A good woman should act like this. A good, and you can just fill in the blanks. Right? But those are fantasies. Those are illusions. Those are you subjugating your true values to someone else's values, right? So what we want is to look at what life currently demonstrates for you and just have like ownership of that. Now there is this 13 question questionnaire we run people through, and there's a distillation process and all of that, which again, I'd be happy to, if some of the viewers are willing to reach out, I'd be happy to, go through that exercise with them. But two other relatively simple exercises, David, that can really point. Do this exercise. Write out a sort of a looking backwards and then looking forwards. Looking backwards, if you only had 24 hours to live, what would you do and what would you say?
Going backwards?
Looking backwards.
What would you have done?
Yes, if you only had 24
What would you
hours
have
to live,
said?
what would you do? Because in other words, what you're doing, David, is look back and say, this is what's most important to me.
Right,
If
right.
I only had 24 hours, this is what I do. And then the opposite to that, or the other end of that binary, David, is to look ahead and say, if I had one day to do anything I wanted to do, time and money were no restrictions. Okay, you got like a bank account with millions in it. Time and money, what would you do? And I can tell you, if you look at those two things, David, too, very much will point you towards what it is that you value in your life.
Well, what I like about that concept is it opens up your mind to kind of a different paradigm, because frequently we're trapped in a limitation paradigm where we're severely limited in what we can do based on the environment and based on, so that really opens it up. And it sounds like to get at your core values, you need to kind of open up and look at the bigger picture. So I get that.
Absolutely, for sure, David.
All right. So obviously you focus on developing core values. And understanding your core values, and clearly we're able to articulate them very specifically. So what impact on your life has learning your core values? How's it impacted you?
Oh my God, David, it's just like, has been likely one of the, if not the most significant, like, learnings of my life. And here's the impact. It influences everything I say, think, and do on a daily basis, both personally and professionally. Because I've been focused on this for so long, David, and I'm so clear about my lane. Because David, I can tell you, if you want a list of my human frailties or things I'm not good at, I could just call my wife. She could be here. It would be a really long list, okay? But relative to the things I'm good at, and again, I hope this sounds confident, not arrogant, there are things that I'm really good at. And I've learned to do that. But how I've done that, as we said earlier, is because I did that elucidation on my core values. And so there are many, what it's done, David, relative to the construct we started with procrastination. It's super easy for me to say no to stuff, right? Because it's not in my lane. It's
Sure, I get it.
Not in my core values, right? And I'm not just talking about like business-wise, I'm also talking personally, right? So again, someone with a high family value, David, what's the likelihood that, somebody, I'm out at a seminar somewhere, and he says, hey, you want to go to the strip club?
Right.
That's a really easy no for me, right? It just doesn't fit my values.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, but then that's a relatively goofy and simplistic view, David. But again, if you're looking at the business opportunities that come across, like even when you, David, asked me about this interview, it's like, I think you and I, even though we don't know each other that well yet, there's things we share. There's values we share. And what you're doing and what you're promoting at selfgrowth.com, in my mind, is congruent in many ways with what it is that I'm promoting, what it is that I would love people to do, right? To help them live their best life. The only little twist I put on, David, is just from a pure place of authenticity through your core values and so on. So again, watch, David, watch the possible flow down. This is what I get my clients to go through. Elucidate your core values, get really clear about your most authentic version of self. And then from that understanding, David, get a really crystal clear definition of what success means to you. Not what somebody else decided, not what a mentor, friend, father, whatever. Not. Right. And again, I would encourage listeners, David, to listen to their own inner dialogue. If you hear yourself saying, I ought to do this, I got to do this, I need to do this, I should do this, that's somebody else's values. When you hear yourself saying, oh man, I love this, I choose this, I desire this, then those are inside out words. Those are things that are really connected. So when you've got your values and you can get a really crystal clear definition of success for yourself, both personally and professionally, now your goals, your strategies, the priorities, David, can flow down from that because you know that they're in alignment with the essence of who you are. And again, if people will, be willing to try on that old sweater I talked about, David, that grandma gave at Christmas, which is, there is this matrix of intelligence in the universe, and there's a piece of that within us. People try that on and they really get that, David. Then what I'm talking about is you're now got that energy, that intelligence kind of on your shoulder.
You're tapping into it.
You're tapping into it. And so your creativity is higher. Your influence is higher, your power is higher. All of those things that flow from it, David, are rock stars. So again, relative to the relative success, David, I've been in my life and my business, I can tell you that is 100% from that flow down of information, creativity that comes from knowing my values, getting my definition of success, and then my priorities, goals, and strategies coming.
Okay, I like it. So I want to expand a little bit more. Core values tying into goal setting. So how do these core values, obviously, once you've set the core values, it's going to influence goal setting. So how does that work? How does knowing your core values influence your goal setting?
Well, what you do, David, is you use it as a filter, a litmus test, if you will, for whether the goals are actually truly aligned with your values. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, I host an annual general meeting with my team every year where we do an annual strategic planning for a couple of days. And from that, David, we come up with 10 and only 10 goals for the year. Okay. And what we have is and again, I'll say this tongue in cheek, but we have a BS monitor on the team, right? Who's there to go back to our values and then filter it back through. And when they're doing their job, probably they're challenging us. And they're saying like, yeah, goal number 1, I see it. I see the links and here's how.
It's aligned. Right.
2, and call them BS. So again, if you use that as a filter litmus test, David, you can then get more clarity on your goals, more congruency, and then the likelihood that you're not going to procrastinate on those goals, David, and let go of the other stuff. Procrastinating the stuff that isn't for you just went skyrocketing higher.
Okay, that makes sense. So are core values something that you just stick with for life? You have your core values, I'm 18, I have my core values, you go. Is it something that's constantly shifting? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely, David. They do shift and they can. And I would offer that commonly the essence of them don't change radically over time, but the hierarchy does change. I'll give you an example, David, right? Health has been one of my values for many, 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 many years. I just did in June, I just did a training with one of my mentors in Los Angeles. And I went back through that in-depth process that I talked about, a 13-step process. And what was interesting, David, as I went through it, is health didn't show up this time. It's the first time in 20 some years it didn't show up. And here's why. Because relative to the void, David, that I felt or perceived around health, totally fulfilled, right? So it sort of shifted and is no longer it's a priority, David, but it's much lower on the hierarchy.
Right.
So again, family, there was a part of me, David, that literally like swallowed hard for the first time since I've been doing this exercise in 30 years, family, wasn't number 1. I almost felt guilty about it. But David, think about my life, right? My daughters are between 20 and 29. They're 3 are off the payroll, right?
Right.
And the other 2 are in their last years of their university educations. So I'm still a God willing, an important part of their lives, and we spend a lot of time together, but it's not the same as parenting 20-year-olds as it is parenting 4-year-olds, or I think in your case, David, teenagers.
Yes.
That can be a very values-driven time.
Well, it goes back what you were saying earlier. It's driven by these voids in your life. And if you've been focusing, you no longer have the void, it doesn't need to be a full focus. If you've already figured out how to satisfy or fill that void and you feel complete in that area, you don't need to put the same level of energy and focus.
Nailed it, sir. 100% nailed it. One other piece I'd like to add, David, that I didn't elucidate earlier, is that it's not just the void, although that's the biggest part of it. It's about, is there a twang or a pain that comes from that? Let me give an example, right? I don't have horses in my life. So, none. I just, nothing wrong with horses. They're beautiful animals. I just don't ride them. I don't have them. I don't look at them. I don't, it's just not part of my life. So there's someone could say, look at my life and go, Tom, you got a void around horses. So that must be a value. No, because I have no angst or pain around that. Right? Again, that's the last little piece of the formula that I would be remiss if I left out.
Right. Well, you don't feel incomplete because you don't have horses. But if you did, I'm assuming if you felt this incompleteness or this hole in your life because you're not riding horses, you don't have horses, then perhaps it become a core value. Hey, I need to fix this.
Yes, absolutely. 100% true.
So you started touching on this earlier in terms of using core values, and you talk about getting together with your team. How can you use these core values and this whole core value determination to inspire your team?
It's become a very important part of our process, David. So we get all of our team members, actually all of our clients too, but to do their core values analysis and get their hierarchies. And then what we do, David, is we invest time because we also have corporate values. Okay? And then what we do, David, is we take the time to link their personal values to our mission and to our corporate values to make sure that they can see the links. And literally, David, this is like a neuroplasticity stuff. Right? We're talking dendrite, neuron, axon stuff, right? Because if people can see the value and see the connection of how being an important part of our family, our tribe at Full Circle, it serves their values,
right?
They're in, right? They're inspired, they're connected, they're there. And when I do like corporate consults, David, that's one of the first things I'll do with, with the executive team is make sure that their personal values are determined and it's linked to the mission. Because if it's not, David, they're just not that inspired. They're just not going to take that extra step, right? So again, that process with the team has been one of the biggest deal, makers, biggest changes, biggest influencers on my team.
I like it. So you've talked about a lot of stuff today, whether it be authenticity, core values, and how these things tie together. And I know for a lot of folks, they're thinking, they get the idea. So a lot of folks get this because I think it's intuitive. You know that if you're aligned or if you figure it out, you have these holes in your life, you have these voids, if you figure out how to fill it. But a lot of people that I know, whether they be working for a company or they have their own company or business owners, a lot of people run into some of the challenges where they get the concepts, but they're having challenges. How do I kind of delve deeper? And I know you have some programs where you work with people very specifically to help them use some of these concepts and really delve a lot deeper into it. You mentioned the series of questions that you asked in terms of kind of understanding core values and how to be more authentic. Can you tell us a little more information about what you do and then how people can get information about it?
Yeah, absolutely, David. So probably the lowest hanging fruit here would be we're running a program in October 5, 6 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Okay, and it's called the Blueprint to Mastery. Okay, and certainly one of the first exercises we take people through in that program is a core values determination. So literally, it's a hands-on. You know what, David? I realized, and I've been invited, graciously, and I've accepted to, do keynotes in front of hundreds or thousands of people at times, and there's a value to that, and I love that. But what I realized, David, is that it doesn't, my experience, it doesn't necessitate change. And so when I do my programs, David, we're like, let's roll up the friggin' sleeves. Okay, right. We got an hour and a half. Here's a 15 minutes talking head in front of the room construct. Let's dive in. So my entire coaching team is there. We usually do smaller groups, David. This one in Toronto, we're maxing, capping out at 70 people. Because what we want is we want people to not just get the concepts, David, as you just said, but that we want them to actually make change in their life. We want them to have ownership. There's a big difference, David, in my experience, between intellectually understanding something and owning it in your heart or at your mitochondrial cell wall level, right? So October 5, 6 this year, Toronto, Ontario, we're doing the Blueprint to Mastery, where we're going to go in and take this concept we just talked about, and we're not just going to be doing core values analysis there. We're going to get people to work through their own definitions of success, the priorities, goals that should be flowing from that. Most business owners, practice owners bring their teams because they want this to be a fully engaged process, right? We also have some exercises, David, that are designed to go in and find out, okay, so again, if this is even, some people even come with some of the stuff sort of, figured out, David, but then why aren't they expressing their full potential? So we have exercises that I used to do only in my mind, body, spirit retreats that are designed to go in and make those changes to allow that understanding to go from here to here so that people can own it and live it. It's a phenomenal 2 days, David. It's, hey, I'm biased as heck, David, because I designed the program, right? But again, these are the concepts that I've been teaching now for over 20 years in my one-on-one coach consulting work. And I just found that we just want to reach a broader audience. We want to give people an opportunity because not everybody has the bandwidth in their life to be able to, commit to a one-on-one program. Right now, we've got these opportunities, these live events to be able to come in and engage for 2 days. My bold assessment, David, my bold statement is that I can do 6 months worth of coaching in 2 days. Come with your mind open, your heart's open, willing to do the work. I will actually guarantee, David, that if we can do 6 months of the coaching in 2 days. Matter of fact, I back that up, David, because they say at the end of day one, if for whatever reasons you're not completely satisfied, you don't feel like we're connecting and doing things, full money refund plus $200 for the aggravation that you've put into being here. We'll put our money where our mouth is, David. We believe that, again, not from a place of arrogance, place of confidence. Right. People will come, do the work. We can create change for them in their lives.
All right, and apply these concepts. As I talked about earlier, you talked about them, that the part of it is really incorporating them into who you are and then applying them. It sounds like that's what you're working with people to kind of step through. 100%. Now, where should people go? What's your website? Where do you want people to go to get more information? They want to find out any more details. They want to enroll in the program. What do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So our main website, David, it's all long form, so it's tough to type out the first time, but then your cook, you'll grab it, right? But so it's fullcirclecoachingandconsulting.com, right? And then if you, to find out more about this specific program, if you just go to the events tab, Blueprint to Mastery, it's there. If you want to go straight to it, just fullcirclecoachingconsultant.com/blueprint. We'll take you straight to it.
Yep.
And again, at this point, David, we're about 40%, 45% sold out. So we still have some seats left. And again, love the opportunity to have some of the listeners, come and join us this year.
All right. So it's Blueprint to Mastery. And I want to just share that link with everybody one more time. It's fullcirclecoachingandconsulting.com. So it's all spelled out, fullcirclecoachingandconsulting.com. You can look for the programs, Blueprint to Mastery, and you'll be able to find all the details. And I believe on your website, it's also information to contact you, how to get additional information, and it's all at the website.
Yeah, it is, David. And so again, but let me just give out my private email. It's Dr. Tom at fullcirclecoachingconsulting.com, right? So if someone has a specific question or an affirmation, or maybe someone got an aha from our time together today, man, reach out. Love to have a conversation.
All right. Sounds good. Before we go, any final last words for folks?
You know what? I would offer this, David. Two quick things. One, and then I'll trace this back to Plato, is where I've traced it back to. He says, the unexamined life is not worth living, right? And so again, going in and looking at the depths of the things we're talking about, this is not for the faint of heart, right? I mean, it's a self-analysis process. You got to be introspective to do that. But the other piece I would offer, David, is this: how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And that's one of the mantras in our company. And so again, if people look at their lives and look at what their lives demonstrated, I can tell them what they value. And then from that, we can go through the priorities and the goals and strategies that could or should come from that.
All right. Very strong message. Dr. Tom, thank you very much for joining us today. I want to thank all our listeners. I want to thank everybody for participating. Make sure to check out what Dr. Tom's doing. And I want to wish everybody great success in all the areas of your life. We'll talk to everybody soon. All right. Take care.
Take care, everyone.